My name's Mike McClellin, and I live in Oklahoma City, and I'm a 20-year kidney transplant recipient. I was born with a genetic condition that resulted in kidney failure. And so I grew up knowing that my kidneys would fail someday because my dad's kidneys failed when I was about 7 years old. He had 2 kidney transplants in 1971, and he passed away when I was 9 years old. At that time, my doctor told me that I would have the same fate as him. My kidneys would fail, I would need dialysis, and that at some point I would need a kidney transplant. When I was about 35 years old, my kidneys failed completely, and I had to start dialysis immediately to extend my life while I waited for a life-saving organ transplant. Dialysis was probably one of the most difficult things that I ever had to do in my life. I was sick all the time. I felt terrible. Sometimes I didn't know if I was going to make it. There were days that I didn't want to go to do dialysis, and I just wanted to call it quits. But my daughter, who was about 7 years old at the time, I would always look at her and think, I need to be here for her, and I have to fight through this thing because I don't want her to grow up without a father like I did. So I fought, and I fought hard, and I went to dialysis. I changed my diet. I did the things that I was asked to do. And then on April 1st, 2001, I received that phone call from my transplant coordinator, and she told me that they had a kidney for me. I was so excited, but my family was so much more excited because while they celebrated, I cried. I sat on the edge of my bed and I cried. I grieved because I knew what it meant. I knew that somebody had just lost somebody very close to them. Something tragic had just happened, and that person made a decision that they would donate their organs, eyes, and tissues, and I was going to be the benefactor of one of those kidneys. So I got my kidney transplant. I felt better immediately. It's almost eerie how quickly I recovered and started feeling better because I didn't know how sick I was until I felt better. But after my transplant, I knew there was something I had to do, some higher meaning to all this. It was a gift. I had to take care of that gift, and I had to honor that gift, and I had to honor my organ donor. I struggled, but I had to find the words to say thank you to my donor and my donor family. And so I spent some time in the hospital thinking about that, could never come up with the right words. And finally one day the words just popped into my head to start my letter. And those words were, I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am. And what I did was I told them my story. I told them who I was. And I told them what happened to put me in the situation that I was in. I told them about my family, how I didn't want my daughter to grow up without a father like I did. And my donor's name is Sandy. And I wanted to honor her and everything I do. And I wanted to find ways that it would make her death seem to have some meaning, that there was some higher power that had some higher plan. And so I sent that letter to them. After my transplant, I was coaching a youth soccer team, and we had the opportunity to go play in a tournament that was in the town where she lived when she died. And so I decided that when I took my kids up to this soccer tournament, that I would take the opportunity that weekend to make time to go to the cemetery, find her. I never wanted to impose. I didn't want to, be uncomfortable with people, and I could at least go to the cemetery, pay my respects, have a conversation with her at her grave and tell her what I'd been doing for 3 years, and just to let her know that how grateful I was. And so after we played Sunday, I took off and I went and found the cemetery. It was out in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of a wheat field. I found her grave, small Catholic cemetery. I was the only one there. And I walked around, found the grave. I read my letter to her, had a conversation. I prayed, put flowers on her grave. I was there maybe 15 minutes, and I was about to leave, and I turned to leave. And there was a young couple that was walking into the cemetery. And so I thought, I'll just stay right here until they get to where they're going, and then I'll leave quietly. Well, what happened was that young couple walked to the same grave, and they stood across the grave from me and looked at me, and the girl looked at me, and I knew who she was the moment we looked and locked eyes. And what she said to me was, my name is Angela. Did you know my mom? And I looked at her, it was like I knew who you were, and I didn't know your mom. But she saved my life. I got one of her kidneys. And we cried. We cried and we held each other and we talked a little bit. And from that day forward, we had contact. We had a relationship, and she was the only one of her family that I knew. But since then, I've met her entire family. On that Sunday, she wasn't planning to go see her mom that day because she said it hurt too much. But somewhere in the middle of the afternoon, she had this urge, and she had to go to the cemetery. And it just happened in that 15 minutes that I was there that we crossed paths. I don't think that that's coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. What I learned was that helped them to have closure. They saw what had happened. They saw the impact that gift had meant to me. Since my organ transplant, my daughter grew up. Now I have 3 grandchildren. She graduated high school, graduated college, she got married. She's a 3rd grade teacher. I met a woman that I had not known 20 years ago when I got transplanted. We dated, we got married, we're best friends. We travel the country, we do the things we love to do. I've had the opportunity to honor my donor and myself. I know that we are all here today because you've lost a loved one. And that loved one, your family, made the decision to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor. I can tell you from experience that your loved one is a hero. Your loved one saved lives. There are people today that see that we're blind. They're able to see the sunrises and the sunsets. The lives saved can now spend time with their families and their friends. They can see their children grow up. They are here today because of your sacrifice, because of the sacrifice. Organ donation saves lives. It saved mine.